I've got to learn the language of real estate. There's going to be a certain number of conversations I'm going to have and learn and be really, really good at to be better at converting.
We need the reps to learn the conversation. We need to learn the conversation to influence conversion.
If you haven't connected the dots between what you do every day brings you what you want, you're not going to be committed to it.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Level Up Podcast with myself, Greg Harelson. This is where I focus on taking you from agent to entrepreneur. As you know, I have a passion for developing agents. And on today's episode, I'm going to share another quick strategy on how you can increase your production. I'm going to be real, so you be ready. Let's level up.
Hey everybody, it's Greg Harelson here, and I wanted to share an interview with you. I wanted to conduct an interview with a great friend, business partner, and mega listing agent, Brendan Payne. I wanted to interview Brendan, share some information with you. Brendan's got a great story. He's somebody that did not have a license when we first met, and he's inspired the heck out of me because, quite frankly, I don't think he's sold less than 100 deals in any year in the last 10 years. And the majority of his business is listing side business. I mean, he can tell us, but I would say he probably hasn't made more than 5 buyer sales in a year personally in the last 10 years. Everything's coming from listings. So I just want to jump right into a conversation with Brendan, get an idea of where did he come from? How did he get into this business? What did he do in the beginning? I also want to know what his challenges were. What did he do wrong? What did he fear? Those are the things that I really want to pull out of this conversation today. So Brendan, I kind of already told you that, you know, the audience here is are people that really want to grow their listing side of the business. So that's what I want to give them is some information on that. But first of all, this is Brendan Payne. He's in the Myrtle Beach, South Carolina office with me, but he's also a partner of mine. We own off real estate companies in Wilmington, North Carolina, throughout the upstate, like Spartanburg, Greenville, Bowling Springs, Charleston, South Carolina. So he's kind of gone quite far in his real estate career. Brendan, thank you for being here with me, man.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime. Looking forward to it.
Well, I've got some questions that I wrote down, and I'm going to go through a few of those. But as we know each other long enough, it doesn't really matter. We don't have to follow any script. But I do have things that I want to trigger certain dialogues because I just know through coaching real estate agents and some of the real estate agents that are going to listen to this, I just know that they have the questions. So let's just kind of lay some groundwork. How long have you been in the business?
We'll be starting year 19. And
19. I swear you just told me it was 16 like earlier.
Well, every time you say how long you've been in the business, then you say, well, I've been selling real estate for about 20 years. And I'm going, I've been with you for 18 of them. You've been in there longer than that. So yeah, be 19 in 2025.
Well, God, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. And if it was Lowe's, right? You were Lowe's prior to. And did you do anything prior to Lowe's? I mean, I can't remember if it was college, then Lowe's, or if there was anything prior to Lowe's.
No, I was in the same industry with Target Corporation. So doing the same thing.
Yeah. Is that retail? Is that kind of what that's considered? Yeah. Okay. Got it. So really, did you ever have a sales background?
No,
not a trained sales background. Okay.
No.
All right. Good. So you got into the business and again, you went straight from going to real estate school. Somehow we crossed paths. You joined, up with me. What did you do in the beginning? And did we ever have a conversation? I think we did, but I would not know how it went. Did we ever have a conversation of working with buyers, working with sellers? Did that ever even occur in the beginning? Because I've never remembered you to work buyers from a business model perspective. Maybe take out a few buyers here and there, but never from a business model. So I can't remember how you even made that decision.
Yeah, we did talk about it. And the first time that we brought it up was actually when we sat down after the very first conversation. It was about 15 minutes or so and just, kind of getting to know each other. And you're asking what I want to do. And I told you what I was doing before and that I hated it and I wanted to get out and I wanted to get into real estate and I didn't want to work nights and weekends. Now, when I going into that, I didn't think that was even an option, but I figured I'll throw it out there. and just say, I really don't want to work nights and weekends. Like, okay. And your reaction was like, that might actually be a possibility. So then after another week or two of kind of making the decision and starting the process, then we had a conversation about, all right, if this is what you're going to, if you're wanting to work a very specific schedule and you want to control your time, then listings is going to be where it's at. And at the time, I really didn't, coming from looking at it now, it's hard to imagine, but coming in new, I remember not knowing, like, where do buyers come from? Where do sellers come from? Why do people work with one or the other? I had no opinions on it. It was truly based off of, I wanted to be a Monday through Friday and ultimately be Monday through Friday and have control of my time. So I just went straight to listings. And I don't think that was, I think you just said you need to go start making phone calls. And that's what I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Okay. I knew that there had to be some sort of dialogue between us for us to sit on that course. And, I want people to know that a lot of people will tell me, hey, Greg, I just want to work listings. I mean, I hear it all the time. But I think what's very, very important, and I hope that everyone takes from today's conversation, is that everyone can tell me that, but then I might in my heart believe that it's going to work. And I might in my heart sometimes believe, I know that that's what they want, but it's probably not going to happen. And that has nothing to do with me judging an individual. But one thing that I remember, and I can say it today, is you are Mr. Consistent. You are so darn consistent. And from the first conversation, which I don't really remember, almost 19 years ago, but I can't imagine that I didn't already pick up on that. So it was very easy when I kind of sensed that you were going to be consistent. And if you said you were going to do it, you were going to do it. Once that happened, then I knew it was going to be easy to just open up and say, okay, here's the process. Because the process works. What ends up happening is most agents don't work the process. So let's go through that, though. Let's start there. What is the process? What was the process? Because if some of you are on this, listening, and you're doing 5 listings a year, or 20 listings a year, or 30 listings a year, and you're wanting to really go much higher, to me, what you have to do is you have to start over. You have to act like you have a beginner's mind, like have a beginner's mind and start over, reset, and as if you starting at zero. And follow the process again. That's where breakthrough will come from. So what was the process? What did you do in the beginning?
Yeah. So in the beginning, I mean, we had the one of the original script books with all of the scripts laid out, all of the instructions for it. Write them out, read them fast, read them slow. All that stuff I got on day one. I think Jan probably gave it to me on day one. And that was, I guess, I've never probably been the guy that wants to go out and try to, like, let me find a new way to do this. So it worked well when somebody was saying, here's what you do. And before I ended up coming to work for you, I talked to a lot of companies, and nobody really had that plan. Nobody had that, here's what you're going to do on day one. And you said, this is exactly what you're going to do on day one. Day one, here you go. So I spent a ton of time going through the scripts, reading them, recording them, not on an iPhone. We had the little bitty micro cassette recorders, and going through just learning that conversation. Because the one thing I knew from my previous life in retail was, with what I did, you had to be a really, really strong communicator. And so I knew that was going to be an important part. And so there was 2 ways I looked at it. One, I could practice on my own, and then I was really clear that when you were saying you got to make X amount of contacts every day, then very early I started looking at that as that was my practice too. So I just looked and every single day I began 7:30 at that time. We all met, 4 or 5 of us that were hired at around the same time. We all met, we role played. I thought it was mandatory. Looking back on it, it probably wasn't, but it was just, everybody was said, hey, why don't you show up tomorrow at 7:30 and role play? So I did that. Gosh, we did that together as a group, the four of us, for probably 8-9 months. And that established a habit of role playing before I got on the phones. Then I was just making calls, make calls in a morning session, make calls in an afternoon session. I did realize at that time, like, if I wanted to have nights and weekends off down the road, I'm probably gonna have to put some time in early. So I worked 2 nights a week for a couple hours making calls, and usually every other Saturday for the first couple of years. But that's, that was just more of a setup for what I wanted it to be down the road. The other thing that I just that just popped into my head for some reason is that I read, it's a core memory of, you had given me Matthew Ferry's book, Creating Sales Velocity. And I read that, and it's maybe 70 pages, quick read. But for me coming in and always having, in sports, positive mental attitude, all that stuff, I'd always known about that, tried to practice that. But that was the first introduction that I had to mindset. In that 76, 80 page book, I'm telling you, I can't even tell you how many times that I read through that. And that foundation at the time where you're going through so much frustration, getting rejected so much, that was key, because I was reading through that, but then I was hearing the same stuff coming from you. So it was like, it had a lot of validity.
I think at that time, wasn't the book like really small? Like, it was a smaller book. It wasn't your normal size. It's funny that you brought up that book. Just yesterday, me and Matthew Ferry were talking, and we're getting ready to get together and just have a conversation and reminisce. But about a year and a half ago, he sent me 2 more cases of those books, and I started giving out again. It's just unbelievable. What was sales velocity? That's
Creating Sales Velocity.
Yeah. Creating Sales Velocity. That's awesome. Okay, good. So what did you gain from making all the contacts in the beginning? What did you gain? Like, what was, and you looking back now, because, well, first of all, what did you think you were going to get because you were making a bunch of contacts? Greg said, I need to make a bunch of contacts. I'm coachable. I'm going to do it. So you're probably thinking, oh, maybe this is your way to success, right? So I'm wondering if there was a difference between what you thought you were actually going to get and what you actually got from all those contacts in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in the beginning there was, I think we all think it's going to happen a lot faster than it's going to. I was very committed to the process, but there were times, I was like, okay, follow the process and the results will show up. Well, when? That was like when. But I think especially in a group like this, where we've got access to this coaching and stuff, we're all a community where we can see other people, what they've done and what it created. In our office at the time, when I got frustrated, I could just look and say, well, there's other agents in here that are following the same thing. In fact, they're standing right across from me and they're getting what I want. I don't see anything different in who they are and who I am. It's not like they were born salespeople or something. So if they've done this and gotten what they wanted, and I'm willing to do this, then it's going to work out. It's just going to take them, it's just a matter of time. I think the urgency for me was, I realized, like, in any industry, every industry has got its own language. If somebody is from, a different job and they bring us there, as much as we know about real estate, if they're bringing us and, talking to us about going and, running a railroad or something, we have no clue. It's got its own language. As much as we try, we don't know how to communicate in that language. So I realized the number one goal is, I've got to learn the language of real estate. There's going to be a certain number of conversations that I'm going to have and learn and be really, really good at, to be better at converting. And the quicker that I do that, then the quicker that I actually start communicating really effectively. And so it was like a race to just shorten that learning curve, because there is one. And, we're not born with all this stuff downloaded and how to communicate effectively with our buyers and sellers. We have to learn it. You don't get to learn it unless you have the reps. It's just, you can't pass it. You can't skip it.
And that's exactly what I had a feeling, that the conversation would be reps, right? It's like, we all get excited when we're following a new process, kind of like a new diet or a new exercise routine. It's like we sign up for the marathon and we start running. It's like, okay, this is exciting. And then, but the reality is it requires reps, and the reps, just doing it over and over and over again, we get so strong. And in your case, what you're referring to is you get strong in your area of communication, learning the language. And so we need the reps to learn the conversation. We need to learn the conversation to influence conversion. Mm-hmm. And that's what happens. So conversion really comes after the reps, where in the beginning we're like, oh, I'm going to reps, results. No, it's reps leads to learning the conversation, and then conversation leads to results. It does not reps equals results. It's not that way. And I think people miss it. And that's discouraging to a lot of people, because they think rep equals results. So if they don't get the results, then they say, oh, this is not working. And the reality is some people that are quitting saying it's not working, they don't even realize their conversation's getting better and better and better. And they don't even know what their conversation is. They're not acknowledging it. They're not realizing that that's the true intention for putting in all the reps. And that just means results is around the corner. You agree with that?
Yeah, we both said it different ways, because I've heard the same concept, and I don't remember what we interchanged with words, but I'll write down or tell you what I remember. Contacts, make a lot of contacts, leads to confidence. Confidence leads to competence. So if I'm confident that I can do the job, and nobody wants to look dumb. Nobody wants to look like they don't know what to say. So if I'm confident, then I want to go out and do the job, and I'm going to actually be good at it. And then when you're good at your job, what happens? Conversion. So it's contact, confidence, that's right, conversion.
Yeah, the 4 C's. Yeah, that's good. Well, look, I think you ended up doing maybe 40 transactions your first year. Is that correct? Somewhere in that range? Mm-hmm. Maybe 70 in your second, and then it took you the third year to, and then you hit 100. And then what percent of it was, throughout that trajectory, what percent was listings versus buyers?
Yeah, it was all listings. There was a couple years where I don't think I had any more than maybe 4 or 5 listings on any of those given years.
Yeah. So then
buyers, I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. And so since you're going on 19 years, okay, so third year that you did 100, and pretty much were 95%, listing controlled business. Have you ever not done 100 since your third year? Because I don't think that's the case.
No.
Got it. And you haven't changed your game. You're still doing listing controlled. Got it. Okay. So, it sounds like you're, you're just an instant success. I don't know about that. I would say you're probably, and I want everyone to understand, I could not honor Brendan more by saying, this statement that I'm going to make is one of the highest compliments I can give this guy. You don't sound like, to most people, you're going to sound like an instant success, but I know you are an instant failure.
Yeah.
You jumped in so quick and followed the process, and you failed and failed and failed and failed your way to the top. But so can you explain to us, what are some of the things that you did that maybe you failed at, or maybe you attempted, it didn't work? And then how did you, instead of letting those failures stop you, you said, okay, that didn't work. I'll do this and keep moving. Because a lot of people, when they face their first failures, they're like, this is not working. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I'll tell you about the time where I had the most doubt. And when you say things like your breakdown is right before your breakthrough, man, it's so true. So in 2007, if anybody was in the market or you were around at that time, it was a little weird. There was some uncertainty in terms of what was going on with prices. We just come off like a huge boom. And honestly, finding people that wanted to sell wasn't hard. Like everybody wanted to sell their property at the time. So if you're making calls and you're having conversations and you're talking about, are you wanting to sell your property? People were saying yes. So I actually started seeing, quote, success, which I thought was getting listings very quickly. I think within the first 90 days, I probably had 15 or 20 active listings, 0 endings. So I was failing at that point was the pricing conversation. So I got a bunch of listings, a bunch of inventory, no clue at that point on what finding motivation was, or what the financial conversation was, on how to price property, on deal with objections. They said they wanted to sell, and we were on the market with dreams of getting top dollar. And so about 4 months in, I can remember going home for lunch one day. Of course, I'm trying to save some money because I didn't have any pendings. And I went home and my wife asked, how's things going? I said, good. I had a good day, set a couple of appointments, and actually just got paperwork signed from the listing that I was on yesterday. And she said, well, that's great. How many do you have now? I said, 20. She said, are any of them going to sell? And at that moment, that was like, for me, I was like, oh my gosh, it hit me in the face. And she didn't mean it that way. She was like, hopefully I'm excited for you. This is going to be great. But at that moment, that was my peak of frustration because she verbalized what I was feeling. Are any of these going to sell? And now looking back, I go, God, man, what a gift that was, because having the ability to get those listings, like if you don't get out there and make the calls, you never have the practice that's going to get the appointment. If you never go on the appointment, you're never going to have the opportunity to take the listing. And if you never get properties that don't sell, you never have the opportunity to learn how to price them correctly. So in that first 4 months, what I thought was just like massive disappointment, massive failure was actually like the university, going to the university of how to sell real estate. And at that moment, that's when I finally said, okay, I need to let go of the results here, because I thought I had been. You've been saying, follow the process, the results will show up since I met you. And I thought I was doing that. But on that day, I could remember driving back to the training center and going, something's not working. This is me. I'm the one that's causing this. Let go. And I'll be darned if shortly thereafter things started popping. And, I think that was just being able to let go and have the confidence that, it's going to work. You're doing the right things. This is just another step. And so when I started, I didn't see all the steps. I just had to believe, go do all this stuff, and you're going to get the results you want. But in between, there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen, and it's okay. Just keep moving.
I could hear somebody in the audience right now saying, Greg, why didn't you tell them, a little bit more information about pricing? And it's like, look, I had a coaching call on Monday, and I was talking to people, and I said, just get started. Get started before you even know what to say. Ready, fire, aim. If I would have broken it down and tried to coach Brendan on everything, it would have been ready, aim, 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 and we would have never got started. So that, I didn't know you were going to say that, but what a great thing to add to this conversation. That is so great, man. So, well, what did work? What is you started this and you're pretty much still doing it today. And if you were to add a team member or a new agent comes in our office, you say, look, if I could just tell you one thing, do this. What did work?
Yeah. Choosing a time that I was going to start my day, and choosing the time I was going to end my day. Hands down, the routine. And I think the reason that's what I did. Now, where I got lucky is the routine that I got into is really effective. So I knew coming in that I was very used to working a schedule, and it wasn't like 6 hours a day. I was used to that. So that wasn't a stretch for me to be like, oh, you got to go in and work 8-9 hours a day, especially in the beginning, you're learning something new. So that part of it was easy. But if I would have shown up somewhere where maybe the routine was, like you said, ready, aim, and never got into action. And then it was like, well, maybe try this for a while. Well, that's not really working. Maybe try this for a while. Maybe try this for a while. That would have been my routine from 7:30 until 5 every day. So there's two parts, I think, that really set me up for what I get and what I want to get. And that's one is just knowing that this is going to be a job. This is a career. And I have a time where I show up and clock in and a time where I leave for the day. And in between there, I've got to get some stuff done. And in between the times that people set for themselves, have something that we know is actually proven to work. Because I could have had the 7:30 to 5, but if it was doing all the wrong stuff, those would have just been my habits now. And I never would have gotten my goal. I just would have had a different set of habits. So the routine and the habits were created by setting the clock in, clock out. Now it's, just find the routine and habits that work.
You know what's interesting, Brennan? It just dawned on me, and I've had this thought kind of over the years, but just came to my mind again. Is like people hear clock in, clock out as restrictive, as like, oh, that's not what I got into real estate. But the reality is, the clock in, clock out mentality that you're talking about is the very reason that you got all the freedom of not working nights and not working weekends. It's clock in, clock out mentality equals freedom, where most people think clock in, clock out equals restrictions. It's the opposite. It's freedom. You just have a little bit of time allocated where you're clocking in and clocking out. Do you remember, like in the beginning, how many contacts were you making per day? I know it's a little bit different. So the number you're going to say, audience, listen, he's going to say a number that's much more than y'all are going to comprehend. And I understand there was more people answering the phone, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. So just understand, there's a reason why I asked this. So about how many contacts were you making per day back then?
I was probably averaging 45 contacts a day. The goal was always 50, and for the first year or so. And then once momentum kicked in, and I was spending less time in the afternoon making calls than I was. There were very few days that I'd make less than 30, 35 contacts, even after year 1 or 2.
Yeah. And how many? Like, let's just say you made 50 contacts. How many appointments would you set?
The goal is set 2 appointments a day.
Yeah, but in the beginning, how many in the beginning would you set if you made 50 contacts?
In the beginning, I wasn't setting any.
Yeah, like 0, right?
Yeah, because I went from not knowing anything and having like 10-second conversations the first smoke screen or objection that I got, and I'd get off the phone. And then I studied and learned. And then I actually knew some things. And then my calls went to like 9 minutes a piece because I wanted to tell them everything that I knew, because I just got this new knowledge. And then they kind of settled in after a while. But yeah, in the beginning, I wasn't making any appointments. I had to figure out that there was nothing. That was just a natural process of a good conversation. It wasn't like this big, huge step where they were going to say, I want to sell. Will you help me out? And then once that's not what it was.
I know this is going to be really hard to answer, just because it's just memory. Let's just say that you averaged 40 contacts a day for conversation's sake. In 3 months, you started averaging 3. So it took you 200 in 3 months is 12 weeks. So 2,400 contacts. And now you're setting 3 appointments a week. Now, this is not perfect math. We'll call this Greg Harelson math. We all kind of know what Greg Harelson math is. It's rounded around. It's not calculator math. But if I did Greg Harelson math and you're making 200 contacts a week for 12 weeks, that's 2,400 contacts. And it took you 90 days before you were setting 3 appointments in a week. So in Greg Harelson math, that tells me you were experiencing, because even the maximum appointments you would have set in that 90 days is probably 20. So then that tells me that you experienced rejection 2,380 times and only acceptance 20 times.
Mm-hmm.
You were rejected 2,380 times. Shut the door in your face. No, Brendan, I'm not talking to you. And 20 people said yes, but 2,380 people rejected you. How in the hell did you handle all that rejection and keep going?
Yeah. I don't think I noticed it, but I was used to having confrontational conversations and stuff that was like adversarial type conversations in my previous career. I think I compartmentalized it a lot and just realized early on I had so many people that I knew that were in sales that were like, just don't worry about it. And I knew that these people don't know me. They don't know. They hang up on me. They call me a slimy sales guy. You're worse than a car salesman. They'd say all that stuff. And they don't know me. And when they would say that, then I'd make another couple of calls and somebody would be the sweetest little old lady or some guy that's like, hey, man, I appreciate you reaching out. Good hustling. And I'm like, okay, there's no rules on this. There's no across the board. Everybody hates this. Everybody hates me. This is just, you're going to get a different reaction from different people. They don't know me. They can't, this isn't define who I am. And then it clicked. I'm like, wait a second. They don't know me. And when I realized they don't know me, then I also realized that, you know what? They don't know I'm new. They don't know that I'm making these calls and talking about selling. And I've never even sold a property before. I've never listed and sold a property before. And so all that stuff that was playing in the background that I wasn't really aware of, like all these fears and doubts and stuff like that, when I realized they don't know me, I can be whoever I want when I make this call. Then it was like, okay, now it's a game. Now it's like, I do know what I'm doing. And it changed my tonality. It changed my confidence and all that stuff. So the rejection, on a daily basis, it was kind of like, I'm kind of expecting it. But when I received it and it's over and over and over again, then I did have to think about it. And then I just realized like, this isn't me. This isn't even them. This is just their reaction to something. I'll control my reaction. Then it dawned on me like, this could really be used this could help me out a ton.
Yeah, that's good. Now, okay, so the second part of you made 2,400 contacts. You got a few people to say yes, but there must have been days going by where all you hear was no, no, no. And then you think about like, what's the physical activity of what you were doing? You were probably standing up and dialing the phone, right? You weren't using an auto dialer. You were manually dialing the phone for your clock in, clock out period of time. How did you manage all that damn boredom?
I think two things. One was controlling my environment. So, I was in the office doing that every single day, and there were other people doing it in the same office with me. Now, I'm gonna preface this because I know you're gonna bring this up. I'm gonna preface this by saying it doesn't matter if it's 12 people next to you, 200 people next to you, or you and one other person. You're in control of exactly what you do. Control in your environment does make a difference, but do not use the crutch of, well, nobody in my office does this, so I can't. That's not true. That's just not true. It only takes you. Now you can improve and maybe make it a little more comfortable by having other people. Misery loves company. That's great. Then go enroll some other people to do that with you. Get somebody else on a Zoom call so you can be in a virtual office together and watching each other. That's all you need. Don't use that as an excuse. But the one thing was controlling my environment so that I knew I'm doing this and there's other people around me doing the same thing. There's a sense of accountability. More important than that, I think, was I had clarity and had connected the dots between what I was doing every single day was going to bring me what I wanted. If you haven't connected the dots between what you do every day brings you what you want, you're not going to be committed to it. You're going to find ways to like, man, let's find something else. Let's scroll. Let's jump on and check something online or see what I'm going to do this weekend. You have to connect the dots between what I do every day brings me everything that I want. Then at that point, do you still get distracted? Yeah. But all you have to do is go, wait a second, how committed am I to this? Let's get back to this. So I think those two things were kind of instrumental in helping with the board.
Yeah, that's great. And something you said earlier, just came back to my mind, which is, at least when you walked in, you were able to see other people that you had known, that maybe you didn't know them personally, but you knew in your mind that they had actually followed the same process, and you could see where they were. So there was something there. Like you did kind of know what was on the other side if you just stayed consistent. Now, for some of those that are listening say, yeah, but we don't have that. Oh, no, I'm giving it to you today. Just because you're not in the office with Brendan every day, you know, and I think everybody that's listening is going to know that you're not full of it. They can tell by your demeanor that you're very authentic and you're actually giving the real story here, not just making it up for entertainment value. So for those of you listening, you have evidence right here of that it works. It's just a matter of you got to follow the process long enough to see the result. Let's wrap it up here, but I do have another thought here, another question, and that is, was there a time, was there a sign, was there an incident, positive incident where you're like, okay, I got this? Not that you arrived, because you and I both know that we're still learning today.
Yeah.
Was there ever a time where you're like, okay, I've got it? Like, I'm not going to now fail. I can take care of my family. I can do these things. I'm stable. If there was, or first of all, was there? And then what was it? How did you come to that, if you did?
Yeah. And this might have been 18 months. It might have been 2 years in. And I remember when it happened. Like, I mean, it feels like yesterday. I'm visual when I think about things, and I like I say my mind's eye. So when I was going through the scripts and stuff, the beginning, like I felt like my brain was empty with the conversation. It was just empty. I had no idea what to say. I studied the scripts and I learned the scripts, and it's in there. And then I make all these calls and I'm talking to people, and some of them worked, some of them didn't. I'd finish the call and go, God, I said the totally wrong thing. That was terrible. And then after a while, I'd feel a little bit more confident, and I'd know what I wanted to say. I would know what's in there, but it was all jumbled up. And so that's for the first 18 months. And then one day it went from there's nothing there to it's getting filled up to it's all in there, but damn, I can't put it together. Like somebody'd say something, they throw me off track. And then one day it just all lined up. In the next call that I made, I remember feeling like instead of making a call and feeling like I'm bouncing all around in this conversation, I'd ask a question and they'd take me off here and then I'd try to get back. I felt like when I made the call and asked the first question, I saw the entire path of the conversation from hello to either we're setting an appointment or we're getting off the phone because I've exhausted all the opportunity. And it went from this windy, crazy road with all these little exits to this straight line, beginning to end. And that conversation changed. It just got so much better, like overnight once that happened. Now, the funny thing is, talking about this is like, that was 18 months and 40 deals later. So that was, you can do a lot while you're learning in this business, and we're still learning. So I think that was it.
Yeah, it's interesting that I'm glad you added that last thing of 18 months and 40 deals later, because so what didn't make you feel like you had arrived was 40 deals. Oh, I did 40 deals now. I got it. I've got this whipped. That wasn't it. It was that my visual, as you were describing that conversation right there, that observation of the conversation was like reading a picture, like kind of knowing, oh, I just saw them do this. I know which pitch is coming next.
Yeah. The conversation became questions that, because if we're, sales is questions. So the questions I was asking weren't because they were on a script anymore or because I'd memorized them. The questions were intentional because I was asking questions because I knew I'd get a certain response from them, which would allow me to now go in the other direction that I wanted with another question. So it was very deliberate. It's like reading a picture is a very good analogy.
Yeah. And all because of reps. This all came from reps.
Yeah.
Reps. All right. Last question. Look, as you know, I set it up in the beginning or shared it in the beginning. The audience here is wanting to take more listings. Okay, no question about it. So, what's one thing that you can leave them with? Somebody that really wants to jump in and just double, triple the amount of listings that they're taking. What's one last tip that you can share?
I think that we all tend to overestimate what we're going to do in this business in the short term and really underestimate what we can do in the long term if we are committed to this process. The second part of that is there aren't any shortcuts. There's a finite number of conversations you got to learn, become a really, really strong communicator, and just make it your mission to go out and talk to more people. This is the investment that for the rest of your career continues to pay off and it just compounds. So whether it's your outbound prospecting or another way, you still have to talk to a lot of people. This is just going to be the quickest.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, Brandon, I sure do appreciate it. I think basically I just wrote down as a title to this video is the journey to Mega Listing Agent. And because I feel like we just went through a kind of a complete journey. Obviously, there's many things and, and many stopping points and kind of like, forks in the road amongst this big journey that we just disclosed or we just shared. But I really appreciate you kind of, exposing what it looked like to get to where you are. I really do. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, everybody. Well, hey, please listen to this recording over and over again, because I tell you, every little 3-minute, 4-minute segment, you can pull out a nugget.